Hi, I'm Eric.
And I'm Laura. We're a couple who stepped away from the default version of success after questioning the traditional path and realizing the life we were building looked right on paper but didn't feel the way we thought it would.
Join us for honest conversations, grounded perspective, real life experiences, and a refreshing take on what it means to live life on your own terms. Today's topic is something I think almost everyone wrestles with at some point, but not many people talk about openly. Because we've all heard some version of the advice. Don't quit, stay committed, push through, be resilient. And honestly, a lot of the time, that's good advice.
The problem is that nobody really talks about the other side of it. What happens when the thing you're pushing through no longer feels right? What happens when staying committed isn't helping you grow anymore? It's just keeping you stuck. Because there's a big difference between hitting a difficult season and being on a path that's no longer aligned. And figuring out which one you're experiencing can be surprisingly difficult.
So, in today's day and age, being persistent really gets a lot of praise. Like pushing through, nose to the grindstone. So, but why is that?
I mean, I feel like speaking for our generation, that's all we were taught. I feel like we grew up in like hustle culture before it was deemed hustle culture.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, just keep going, keep pushing through, you know, keep doing it no matter what life throws at you.
Yeah.
Just go through it, and a lot of the time that's it, a lot of people see that as being a positive trait.
Right. Like it's a badge of honor or
Yeah,
something.
right.
I don't think it is, but
Pushing through things just to say you do it is not the right way to do things.
no, I agree. Well, it's interesting. Like when you think about it, most success stories, they're always celebrating the people who kept going when things got difficult. I mean, the number of books that I have read,
I was
like
just gonna say that.
whether
Yeah.
it's a biography or an autobiography, personal development, like where the author's story is very intertwined with the content of the book. It doesn't matter like if there's somebody who pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. They kept going when things got difficult. And I mean that's not to say that that's not amazing. Like that's not at all what I'm trying to say here. But these success stories, like, they're never celebrating the underdog who stayed the underdog. They're
So,
the underdog to the hero type stories.
and like no one wants to be the quitter, right? And that's not what we're saying here either. But growing up, I think a lot of people get it in their minds that quitting is bad.
It means you failed.
It means you failed. And that's that again, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that quitting is good or bad. Sometimes leaving that situation or doing whatever it is would be the better option than staying. But it is so interesting is that our culture is just so like it's so respected to push through the all of the shit. Again, even when pivoting is the better option.
I agree. And I do think that there's a difference between persistence and things like resilience and commitment. I think there's a ton of value in being resilient in a situation, in committing to and following through on what you said you do. But sometimes you do need to know, like, you need to recognize, like, it's time to walk away.
Yeah, and that kind of leads like last episode we did talk about having that alignment, and if something is like, if you're staying committed to whatever it is that you said you were going to do because it does still feel aligned with you, that's one thing. But if you're doing that and it's not aligned with you, like it goes against everything that you're kind of, everything that you stand for at that point, you're everything has changed, or things have changed for you, like your goals or your values, being persistent and sticking to it, it's like, why?
Yeah. So a question for you would be, do you think persistence gets praised because it's actually good advice, or because it's easier to teach that than teaching people actual discernment?
It's absolutely easier to teach, push through, keep going. It's going to get better than it is teaching discernment. 100%. It is, even at a young age, it's taught. Again, last episode, it's taught. Everything is from a young age in school, from family, from friends, from, just keep going, head down, push through.
Yeah, 100%. It's so interesting. I feel like, and I have no idea if this is actually like relevant, but I feel like the whole like idea of pushing through, even when it doesn't make sense to. I think back to high school and our senior year of high school. I remember going to I was invited to the award ceremony, and I had no idea what award I was getting. Out of our whole graduating class, which I think was 300 some odd people, I was the only one who got an award for not missing a single day of school in all 4 years. I was so incredibly embarrassed.
Wow.
Like, who does that? But again, I was raised with the belief that you just push through. Oh, you don't feel good unless you're like literally dying on the floor? Like, you're doing it.
Right.
Like, that's what comes to mind for me. And it's just like, I mean, still, to admit that on a podcast is just like, oh my gosh. Doesn't feel great, but like, wow. It's just, to me, it's such a strong example of like pushing through, even like, I mean, even when it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's wild, because I missed like an entire month
I know.
in senior year.
Very different standards growing up.
So I guess in that case, like you had just said, unless you're on the floor dying or puking your brains out, that sort of thing. Like,
really, you had to go there? I was trying to avoid saying that.
Well, whatever. But to just have that advice, that blanket advice. I mean,
I think it's more harmful than it is good.
Exactly.
Because then I went into like college, and I'll admit I skipped classes on occasion simply because I chose to.
Yeah.
But then when I went into the working world, like, calling out sick wasn't even in my like vocabulary. I remember having to call in sick, and I was like, what do I say? How do I do this? Because I literally had no idea. Because even though I needed to take an actual sick day, I felt like I was doing wrong because I wasn't able to push through.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I think this happened like last year for me. It was last year or the year before, it doesn't matter. But I had like a cold, I was under the weather, and I remember getting on the messenger for work and telling my boss, saying, hey, I'm not feeling so well today, so I may not be as efficient as I normally am. Instead of just saying, hey, I'm not showing up today.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I was like, nope, I gotta get some stuff done. Really? Like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's like, I work remotely. If I want to, I could do this from the couch.
Yeah,
Like, it's just
exactly.
like we almost justify like our reasoning for pushing through.
Yeah.
Even when pushing through is the absolute last thing we should do. And it doesn't just apply to like when you're sick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many of us go through a season of life where it feels like everything is piling onto our plate and we just can't get ahead and we just keep pushing through instead of taking the time to see what's on the plate, see what can potentially be pushed, see what can be moved or delegated or completely removed
Right.
from the plate.
Yeah.
We just push through.
Mm-hmm. Try to get everything done.
Yeah, like consequences be damned.
Right.
And like that's not the way to do it.
So, okay, here's a great question is, have you ever stayed committed to something because you just didn't want to be that person who quit?
Yes. I mean, honestly, if you could sit here and say no,
Mm-hmm.
I would give you a gold star. Like,
Yeah.
it's just an automatic yes for me. Like, and you know, I would say there's no one situation that's like immediately coming to mind for me, but like, there have been many situations where like the only option I see is to honor the commitment I made, even if that commitment that I made like may have been aligned when I made it, and now however long later it's not.
Interesting.
What about you?
I think for me it's more like project based, like woodworking, for example,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I would have tried to have made like finished the project, even though I knew in my head that it sucked, and it would have been better and faster and easier to just scrap that project and start fresh.
Interesting.
But because I had already spent so much time invested in that thing, like I can't quit on this now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I gotta finish it. But in reality, it's like, just throw it in the burn box and then start fresh.
Well, and that kind of raises the question, like, how many people spend years of their lives proving they can endure something that they don't actually want? I think it happens every day. I think
Oh
it
yeah.
happens multiple times a day for some people.
Mm-hmm. Being in, let's say, a job that doesn't do anything for you, but because you've been there for so long, you know how to do it, pays pretty well.
It's familiar, it's comfortable, it's
Exactly.
known.
Yep, exactly. And that's, I mean, again, there so many people are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a tough. Sometimes it can be a tough situation to be in, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, you do have to like weigh, I guess, weigh everything against each other, right?
Yeah, I think so. And like something else to note is that I think persistence and avoidance can sometimes look identical from the outside.
Okay, so just like that, stuck in that job that you may or may not, feel it may or may not be so aligned for you. There exactly that. It's you're persisting through it because it's so familiar, or because the pay is pretty decent, or whatever like that. Or are you actually avoiding making that change because it does feel comfortable and because it is familiar and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be the new person anymore? That's, whew.
But that's not to say that like all discomfort is a sign that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes the answer is actually to keep going.
Yes.
Like, gosh, I would never want somebody to listen to us and be like, well, that's it. I just need to like blow up my whole life.
Listen to the road less traveled with a traveling bird. That's it. I'm quitting my job tomorrow.
Selling my house. No. Selling my possessions. Like I'm doing the thing. That's certainly not what I would. I mean, if that's what you want, amazing. Like we fully support that. But that is not what we're saying here by any means. Like sometimes the answer is to keep going. I mean, it's fascinating because I feel like I have done so much like growth and personal development work, and I have grown so much as a human in the last few years, let alone the last 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say that when you are in the middle of a growth phase, I mean, the reality is we should all be growing and evolving always, but some seasons are more growth focused. Mm-hmm. Yep. But it can often feel super slow, so frustrating, 1,000% uncomfortable, and pretty uncertain.
Yeah. I mean, we've definitely been there, both of us. Speaking for myself, the growth phase, like you said, there's definitely discomfort in there. Mm-hmm. Because you're becoming more aware of things within you, or within me, I should say. I have become more aware with things within myself, and you start questioning things. And I mean, that can go on a whole different tangent, but like you really just like come to that crossroads of like whatever it is. I can't speak to anyone, but is pushing through whatever that thing is, does it make sense?
I have the perfect example.
Okay.
So
perfect.
Say you're working your full-time job. Mm-hmm. And you don't necessarily like hate it, but you know that it's not your life's purpose. You know that you were made for more, and you have an idea of what that more looks like. But you decide to stick with a job while you focus on, say, building your business. Sticking with a job makes total sense. Uh-huh. Aside from the fact, the obvious, like covering your expenses, bills, etc. Yep. So while you're working your full-time job, you're building your business on the side. That full-time job, like you may not feel super connected to it, super passionate about the work you're doing, but you're able to push through because what you are building on the side is connected to something that you genuinely want.
Yes.
So your goal still feels meaningful, mm-hmm. even if the full-time work is not.
Right.
And you know that you're moving towards that outcome that you desire.
Right. Because you can see the benefit of sticking it out. Mm-hmm. Because there is something, I don't want to say the reward, but the outcome is there. Mm-hmm. You can see it, right? Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, question for you is, what does healthy struggle feel like compared to unhealthy struggle?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to play off of your example right there. So a healthy struggle would be, so you have your full-time job and you are working, you're building a business on the side. And let's say every week, 3 or 4 nights of the week, you're staying up way later than you normally would because you're building that business. That, in my opinion, that's a healthy struggle. Because in order to, actually make your business work, I mean, you're not going to do it during your full-time job.
Right.
So you need to do that in pockets of time that you may have. So those nights that you are going to bed later, yeah, you may feel like crap the next morning because lack of sleep or whatever, but like I see that as a healthy struggle.
Right. Well, I see healthy struggle too as for a season.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
unhealthy when it's literally constant and there's never a break, there's no end to it. But healthy struggle exists for a season and for a reason.
Mm-hmm. So what would be an unhealthy struggle? Because I might pick this back up.
I mean, literally just like, I don't have an exact example, but just the constant, like, nothing's changing, you're not working towards anything, you're super unhappy in your situation, but nothing's changing.
Yes, that's pretty much where I was going to go as well.
Or in the example that I gave, you're working your full-time job, you're building a business on the side, and like you're building, like the business you're building on the side is just a constant, like it's not a season of building, it's just this constant like slog of struggle.
So, if that was the case, when would it be a good time to make a pivot? Like if that, let's say that full-time job, you're working that, again, bills are paid, all that. And that business is, I wouldn't say thriving, but you're, like you said, slogging through it. And it keeps going and going and going. At what, and I guess this would depend on the person, but when would be that time to make the pivot? Instead of just like, yep, throw my hands in the air and I'm done, I'm quitting everything, screw all this. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I think when the goal that you've set yourself it no longer feels meaningful. So you're no longer like passionate about what it is that you're trying to achieve. You don't believe in it the same way.
Okay.
It doesn't mean the same thing for you. You may also need to pivot when you're pursuing something because you think you should be pursuing something.
The shoulds.
The shoulds.
We really need to have an entire episode.
We
on that.
really do. Yeah. Oh gosh, we really do. We should make note of that. Of course, we have nothing to write.
I know,
on,
right?
But what such is life. I would say also like when motivation constantly feels forced. So motivation is one of those things like we're not always motivated as human beings.
Yeah.
Often, I would say like 99% of the time, we need to just like do the thing and then motivation follows.
Mm-hmm. A good example for that is like a workout.
Correct.
You may not feel motivated to start the workout, but if you start the workout, then you're like, hot damn, this is exactly what I needed.
That's exactly how I've always approached my workouts. Mm-hmm. On days where it's the last thing I want to do, I tell myself, okay, you're going to do this for 10 minutes. And if you're still feeling that way after 10 minutes, then you can make the choice to step away and be done with it. Mm-hmm. And I would say 11 times out of 10, those 10 minutes pass by and either I don't even realize that I'm 10 plus minutes in, or I reassess and I'm like, well, that was silly. Like, I just needed to get started.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That, I know we've talked about this before, but that, like, motivation around workouts always takes me back to my days as a personal trainer and a client of mine. And I trained her, like, after her work day. It was in the evening. And I remember there was a day where I hadn't even gotten my workout in, and it was probably, like, 4:30, 5 p.m. or later. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, oh, you'll get it in. Like, you're motivated. And I'm just like, I'm not always motivated. That's cool that you see me as that. But, like, I'm certainly not motivated. But again, when it comes to working out or cooking a nourishing meal or getting movement in or completing a task on your task list that's been outstanding for a while, for me, I know what it feels like to be on the other side of a workout, to be on the other side of completing a task, to be on the other side of nourishing my body with a meal. And that feeling on the other side of it is what keeps me going. It's what gets me through when motivation doesn't always exist. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean that, like, motivation, there aren't times where motivation, or whatever you want to call it, like, doesn't just feel like it's constantly being forced.
Right.
So, I think it's also possibly time to pivot when you have changed, but the path hasn't. Often, because we are growing and evolving human beings, we change over the course of, you know, setting a goal or setting our sights on a path or even walking down that path. We might get halfway down and we realize, like, oh, I'm not the same person I was when I started.
Yeah.
And this really no longer feels good for me.
Right. So then there is a difference between I don't want to do the work and I don't want that outcome anymore.
100%. Story time again?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, for me, this, like, definitely brings up my first business in the health and wellness space. And what had started off as, you know, in-person client work, one-on-one, which I loved, eventually evolved into doing similar work in the online space. And if you've ever done any work in person with clients and then moved into the online space, it is like a totally different world. It's a totally different experience, way different to connect with people in person versus online. But when I got into the online space, like, my heart was still in it, and I was trying to figure out how to kind of make it work in a way that made sense, where I could still serve people the way that I wanted to, and I could still help people the way that I wanted to. And I was in the online space for more years than I was in person, but it got to a place where I was just pushing through. And, you know, what came up for me was, like, I didn't want the outcome anymore. And it was not this overnight discovery by any means. It was literally, like, years long discovery. Because I still had the passion and the belief and the desire to do what I was doing, to help people the way that I was helping them. But I realized that I just didn't want the actual outcome anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a tough season to be in when you're contemplating that decision. And, you know, I would say in all of my career history, the closest I ever came to, like, absorbing what I did as a large part of my identity was actually in that first business.
Very interesting. Wow. I didn't really know that.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
You know, and pivoting for me felt hard. I felt like I was giving up something that I was so passionate about, and, you know, told the world that I was passionate about. So not only did I feel like I was failing myself, but I feel like I was failing others, which is absolute shit, because we're not failing. You're not failing anybody when you decide to, like, pivot or make a change or walk away from something. You're doing what's in your best interest. And at the end of the day, the only person that's going to watch out for you is you.
Right.
Like, we have our own backs, and that's about it.
Well, I got your back.
Well, I got your back too. But you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean.
I do.
But, like, I mean, reflecting back on that time in my life, I wouldn't necessarily say that like I was afraid of change. It was just like, this is what I had been doing, this is what I had been known for, so like where do I go from here? So it's almost that like being afraid of what changing directions means. Because I feel like I did have a bit of an identity crisis after that.
Uh-huh. I do remember that.
Do you remember that part?
Yeah, I remember that part, yeah. Because so what you're saying is because what you were doing was familiar and I want to say like the same, but like it was familiar for you. You knew what you were doing. And to pivot or step away from that and move into something else, that's what you're saying was the difficult part.
Oh, definitely. It was really the like, cool, so like what do I do now part that I think was very challenging for me.
So I'm going to bring this way back to what we were talking about a little while ago, was the that person who has that full-time job and who's got their side business, because I think there's a lot of people who are in that same boat. So in that situation, do you think that that those individuals have like their a fear of them wasting their own time, or a fear of them starting over, or hell, even a fear of judgment, whether that's from family or friends or coworkers or well, I guess those would be the big three in that case. But do you think those people have any of those?
Yes. As somebody who was that person, 1,000%. Yes.
I am people.
I am people. Because I had literally stepped away from the traditional path, career path, to start my own business. And so even though I could go back to the traditional path at any time, aside from the fact that like I really did not want to, it's almost like I had to prove to others more than I needed to prove to myself that I was capable of doing this. I was capable of carving my own path and, you know, doing my own thing versus what was just expected of me. So, like, for me, there was, I think, some of that fear around, like, admitting that I had changed my mind. That what was once so aligned for me and something that I was, like, so convinced was my life's purpose, to then be like, this is no longer in alignment for me, so I'm going to step away and figure out what's next. Like, it's a scary thing. We live in a judgy freaking world. We do.
Oh yeah, I absolutely.
And I think often the people closest to us can be the most judgmental.
Interesting.
Whether they intend to be that way or not.
Of course.
But
man, so I guess this brings us way back to the beginning of this episode. Is so the persistence versus pivoting for you. It sounds like you did have that persistence for a little while, and you recognized that, and then you did make that pivot.
But I pushed through for years because I didn't know, because there was so much uncertainty as to what I would do if I didn't do that. So I pushed through for years trying to make it work, trying to, you know, make me fall in love essentially with what I was doing again. And eventually I just had to accept and acknowledge to myself that this is not where I'm meant to be.
Man, there's a lot there.
A lot there.
Loaded
conversation.
Yeah, man. So, do you think that the uncertainty about someone's future, or the time and energy and money that someone has spent on their past, do you think one of those is greater for keeping someone stuck?
Greater? No.
No?
I think it's a mix of the two, but
Probably depends on the person.
it does. And like while I understand the like fear around being uncertain of the future, the reality is none of us know what our future holds.
Right.
Like there's a song lyric in a worship song that I love, and every time I hear it, it just like stops me in on my tracks. And I cannot for the life of me think of what it is, but it's something along the lines of like,
As soon as we stop this episode, it'll
I
come
know,
to your head.
but like not worrying about the future
Mm-hmm.
because like God's got you. And it's obviously more eloquent than that. But
Yeah.
I know you've also, like, anytime it's come on, you're like, oh, man. Like, it's just such a good reminder. Like,
Right.
So, you know, I do think both can keep people stuck. I think it is very dependent on the person. But I can also see how somebody could be super attached to the past. You know, the past version of them. I mean, how many times have you set out to do something? I'm going to say me. How many times have I set out to do something and I'm literally comparing present day Laura to a past version of Laura? And one, it's not fair to me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Past version of me was in a different season of life, a different age, different goals, different dreams, different plans, different everything. What I think is important is to like learn from the past.
Yeah, so
but to become attached to a past version of you,
right,
and to think that like, oh well, it worked in that season of life, so it's gotta work now. Like, we change, we evolve.
What?
I know.
Crazy.
I know. So before we get into any takeaways for today, I have a question for you. And I know you have asked me this, and I'm sure my answer would change. Actually, I don't think my answer would change. But the question is, if you were starting from scratch today, would you still choose this path?
I would. There's always it's always interesting to think about how the trajectory of my life, our lives would be, or where it would have gone if certain choices would have been made.
I feel like we talk about this often.
Yeah.
I mean, it all started. It literally, like, we can trace this back to, like, your decision to join the military versus going to college, which was your original plan.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe that if you had gone to college, we would not be sitting here across the table recording a podcast.
Right.
Because you would have been in college in one part of the state, I would have been at college in another part of the state. Like, I just don't think that we would be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is interesting to think about that like, oh well, what if? No, I hate the what ifs, but like,
I think what ifs. I think when you focus on what ifs, like, you're actually focusing on regret.
right, and that's what I'm getting at is I don't regret anything that I've done. Mm-hmm. Like, every decision I've made I've made it, and it has led me and us here. But it is interesting to think of the different paths, the different trajectories that a decision, one way or the other, would have made. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, I would absolutely choose the same path again. Mm-hmm. Every decision. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you're in the same boat.
I would. Like, as pivoty and, like, as many changes of directions that I've had over the years, I have learned invaluable lessons, priceless lessons from every experience, every situation, every choice. And I would 1,000% choose the same path over again just to learn those lessons.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing we'd encourage you to do after listening to this episode, it's to identify one area of your life that you've been carrying forward simply because you've always carried it forward. Not because you're looking to change it, not because you're looking to quit it, just because it deserves a fresh look.
Maybe it's a goal you've been pursuing for years, a career path you've never questioned, a commitment that feels automatic, a routine that's become part of your identity. Some really good questions to ask yourself here are, why am I still doing this? What am I hoping it gives me? And is that still true today? The thing that keeps sticking with me from this conversation is how rarely people stop to reassess what they're pursuing. Not because they're afraid to, just because life keeps moving. The next project, the next promotion, the next year. And before you know it, you spent years moving towards something you haven't actually checked in on in a long time.
And that doesn't mean it's wrong. Sometimes you'll look at it and realize, yeah, this is exactly what I want. But sometimes you'll realize you're putting all this effort into something you've mostly been carrying forward out of habit, or expectation, or because you've already invested so much into it.
And that's the part people don't talk about enough. We hear a lot about persistence. We hear a lot about not giving up. But we don't hear much about reassessment. And sometimes reassessment is exactly what's needed. Not because you're looking for an exit, not because you're looking to blow up your life, just because it's worth occasionally asking, is this still taking me where I want to go?
Because if the answer is yes, great, keep going. But if the answer is no, that's useful information too.
And that's really what this episode is about. Not quitting, not pushing through, just being honest enough to know which situation you're actually in. If this episode resonated with you, a couple quick things you can do that really help us out. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. If you haven't yet, we'd really appreciate you leaving a review. It helps more people who are feeling this way actually find these conversations.
And if someone came to mind while you were listening, send this episode to them. These are the kinds of conversations most people aren't having out loud. If this conversation resonated with you, we'd love to have you join us over on Substack. That's where we're sharing more of our thoughts on work, time, alignment, and building a life that feels intentional, not just successful on paper. We'll drop the link in the show notes.
Thank you for being here. We're Eric and Laura, and this is The Road Less Traveled with the Traveling Burns, where we have honest conversations about challenging the default path and what it really means to live differently. We'll see you in the next episode.